Well, guys, the time is officially upon us. The Rolex 24 is literally just hours away from beginning, but this is not a racing show at all. We're talking wrestling today. Hey yo, it's me, Elijah Leonard. I hope you guys are doing fine today, because you know what? I'm doing fine myself. Happy Saturday, everybody. And hopefully you guys are getting yourselves a very good start to the weekend. And just hopefully you guys have a good and safe weekend as well. I did hear that over on the east side of the state, there's going to be these big giant insects that are going to be emerging from the ground later on in the year. Hopefully it's not too big of a deal, because I hear that these insects emerge every 17 years over on the East Coast, and I hear they're going to be in some parts of Michigan. Hopefully not in this part, but unfortunately in some of the more eastern parts of Michigan. So to those people that may be going through this kind of issue with these insects, I forgot the name of the insects. I may have to put the name of them down at the bottom of the screen. I'm out of it today. I don't know what's going on. But just either way, stay safe. Hopefully it's not too big of a problem. But these insects come up every 17 years. So after this year, they won't appear again until another 17 years later. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. So as I said, we're not talking about racing. We're not talking about the Rolex 24. We're talking about wrestling. And this is Grand Slam, the first episode of Grand Slam. And what better way to start off this show by making predictions for the Royal Rumble, the 2021 edition of the Royal Rumble. And it's going to be a whole different sight this year because of COVID and with the Thunderdome. This is going to be a relatively interesting Royal Rumble, to say the least, because this is definitely not going to be like last year, where we saw big stars like Beth Phoenix make an appearance in the Royal Rumble, or MVP make his return to WWE, or Edge making a surprise return to the ring after a 9-year stretch where he's been recovering and getting healthier, and vice versa. And it's not going to be the same as last year. That's definitely for sure. This will be nothing like last year or any other year before that. So, with that being said, let's basically talk about the matches that are going to be in the Royal Rumble card for this year. So to basically start things off, you're going to have two matches. I think these two matches are going to take place on the kickoff show, most likely. I could be wrong, but the two matches that are going to be lined up for probably the kickoff show, I'm, like I said, most likely going to be wrong for this, are the United States Championship match taking place between Bobby Lashley, the champion, versus Riddle, or Matt Riddle, the challenger. And then the Intercontinental Championship match between Big E, the champion, versus Sami Zayn, the challenger. And then we go on to some of the women's matches, starting off with the Smackdown Women's Championship between Sasha Banks and Carmella. That match, I think, is going to be very, very interesting. You'll hear my predictions on that later on. And then we have the Women's Tag Team Championship match between Asuka and Charlotte Flair, both the Tag Team Champions, taking on Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. Next, we have the infamous rivalry that will most likely conclude at the Royal Rumble, the WWE Championship match between Drew McIntyre and Goldberg, which, like I said, that one I'm going to keep my eyes on. Then we have the Universal Championship match between Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens in a last man standing match. So that will be very, very fun to watch. And then we get to the Royal Rumble matches. So we have the Women's Royal Rumble and then the Men's Royal Rumbles. With the Women's Royal Rumble featuring with a women's Royal Rumble featuring participants such as Nia Jax, Charlotte Flair, Bayley, Bianca Belair, Mandy Rose, and more, as well as the men's Royal Rumble featuring people like Dolph Ziggler, Sami Zayn, Mustafa Ali, Jeff Hardy, Cesaro, and more. For a Royal Rumble that's going to have a whole different spectacle with the Thunderdome and with people watching the pay-per-view virtually, this is going to be a very different Royal Rumble, but I don't think it's going to change the pace of what the action is going to look like. So, with that being said, why don't we go ahead, get on down to some of my predictions for these matches on the 2021 card. So to start things off with the United States Championship match between Bobby Lashley and Riddle, honestly, these two guys are actually very, very good in the ring. Bobby Lashley, with his size and power and strength, could definitely get the job done, whereas Matt Riddle has an MMA background. He is a high flyer. He's not really I wouldn't consider Matt Riddle a high flyer, but he is definitely a master of the mixed martial arts and definitely would know what he's doing against Bobby Lashley. However, these are two different fighting styles that are going to clash. And honestly, I would not be surprised if the rest of the Hurt Business got involved in their match and allowed Bobby Lashley to pull this off. So I'm going to say Bobby Lashley wins via assistance from the Hurt Business. That's my prediction on that match. Next up, we got the Intercontinental Championship match between Big E and Sami Zayn. And honestly, this really doesn't seem like a contest to me. I kind of feel like that this is going to go on for maybe about 5 minutes or more, possibly. And I really do see Big E retaining the title. I see Big E retaining the title by basically ragdolling Sami Zayn around the ring. Because I really, honestly, they haven't really used Sami Zayn all that well recently. And I have a feeling they're going to probably do the same thing this time with Big E, because Big E has just been on a roll, and I really think he's going places, especially as Intercontinental Champion, because keep in mind, he has been Intercontinental Champ before, I think right around 2012 or 2013, right around that area. So I would not be surprised if they put Big E over Sami Zayn. And that still will be really cool for Big E to retain. I'm kind of down for it. We got the Smackdown Women's Championship match against Sasha Banks and Carmella. Honestly, I've been waiting for these two to clash for a little while now. I've always been very interested in seeing this matchup take place between Sasha Banks and Carmella. Sasha Banks with the character of being the boss, and with this new gimmick that Carmella is pulling off. She used to be the Mella is Money, now it's Untouchable. So you got the boss, and I don't know what you call Carmella. I will say Untouchable Girl. I don't know, but either way, you got these two clashing in the ring. And honestly, I think that is going to be a really, really good match to watch. That one, I think, is one that, out of all the women's matches, that you're not going to want to miss, especially if it's a singles title match between the women. And honestly, it's going to be tough, but I do see Sasha Banks retaining the title because she has been on a roll recently after defeating Bayley, I think at Hell in a Cell. Either it was Hell in a Cell or TLC. But either way, Sasha Banks, honestly, I think is going to be put over Carmella in this situation. The next match on the card is the women's tag team title match between Asuka and Charlotte Flair against Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. Now, this one I think is a little bit more difficult to predict because of the fact that all four of these women are super good in the ring at like their characteristics in the ring, such and so on. I'm not really good at explaining things, I do apologize. But honestly, if I had to say who would be the winner of that tag team match, I'm going to say Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. Here's why. I'm thinking near the end of the match, Ric Flair and Lacey Evans are going to interfere and cost Charlotte Flair and Asuka the women's tag team titles. Keep in mind, there is a rivalry going on between Charlotte Flair and Lacey Evans and Ric Flair. And this is honestly a very interesting storyline that's taking place between these three in particular, because Ric Flair is the father of Charlotte Flair. And this honestly is it's very interesting, because if you recall 5 years ago, where I think when Charlotte won the Divas title at the time, she had a lot of power go to her head, and she turned on her dad. So I'm kind of interested to see like where this storyline goes, because now it's Rick who's turned on Charlotte. So the tables have turned in this situation, and he's got Lacey Evans on his side. So that's definitely a pretty good equalizer, to say the least, between those two alone. But I would not be surprised if Lacey Evans and Ric Flair came along and interfered in that tag team match. I would not be surprised with that at all. The next match on the card is the WWE Championship match between Drew McIntyre and Goldberg. I'm very, very, very interested in seeing what direction WWE is going to take with this match, because they could do two things. One, they could put Drew McIntyre over Goldberg and have McIntyre skyrocket up through the rank. Well, not really. He would, and basically get so much more leverage right over his head. Or two, they could have Goldberg win the match in a typical Goldberg style match, which is basically Survivor Series, minute 26. Remember that. And have Goldberg win the title. Have him keep the belt for a few months until, say, Elimination Chamber or WrestleMania, and have another person come along and they use Goldberg to put over somebody else. That's two ways. That's two directions that WWE could take with this. And honestly, it's gonna be controversial if they put Goldberg over either way. But then again, look at last year, where they put Goldberg over The Fiend, and then eventually they were gonna put Roman Reigns over Goldberg, but instead Braun Strowman takes Roman Reigns' place once the pandemic ramps up and Reigns pulls out, and they put Strowman over Goldberg. So that's a good example of actually using some of the older talent to not only elevate the older talent, but also use some of the younger talent, some of the newer talent to put over the older talent. It's basically a win-win in some fashion, because you get somebody to put over like some of the newer guys or the younger talent, and then you get another person from the other younger talent and put him over somebody else. I really hope what I'm saying makes sense, and if it doesn't, I'm sorry. But I am thinking that they're going to put over Drew McIntyre. They're going to put him over and have him keep the belt for a little bit longer. I would not be surprised either way, with what they do. I still think this is going to be a pretty good match to watch. But either way, I don't care how this ends because I like both of them. I like both Goldberg and Drew McIntyre, and I can see this match ending in either way, whether it be Drew McIntyre winning or Goldberg winning. That's really all I have to say. But if I had to choose one, Drew McIntyre. Pretty much, I have my money on Drew McIntyre. On to the Universal Championship match between Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens. Now, this match originally was supposed to be Roman Reigns versus, Adam Pearce, who is a WWE official, but I didn't realize until I looked it up on CBS that Adam Pearce is a former 5-time NWA champion, and they're actually using this guy as a on-camera talent, as a WWE official, and he's being ragdolled. And honestly, seeing as how they've used Adam Pearce, but really they didn't use him all that well, I'm interested to see if they actually would give him a second chance and actually give him a chance to actually prove himself in the ring. I'm very interested to see if they're actually going to do that. Most likely not, but that's just my thoughts. But back to the match between Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens. I honestly think that this long winning streak that Roman Reigns is on right now is I don't know if it's already come to an end, but if it hasn't, I think it is going to come to an end. And Kevin Owens is going to win back the Universal Championship. Now, that could be a pretty bold prediction, but seeing as how Kevin Owens has been on fire recently, I would actually love to see Kevin Owens have a title belt back on his shoulders or around his waist or hoisted up high. I really would like to see that. But I also like Roman Reigns too, and I really like where he went with his physique, and with his physique, it actually did catapult him to the point where he is right now. But either way, I kind of don't care how this match ends. I really am hoping though that it's Kevin Owens that wins the title. But like I said, aside from that, it doesn't matter to me how this match ends. It's a last man standing match, so anything can happen. Alrighty, so now it is time to talk about the Royal Rumble matches, starting with the Women's Royal Rumble. And the Women's Royal Rumble, I just found out, has a little twist. There is going to be a match tonight on a WWE Backstage exclusive between Natalya and Tamina. And honestly, if Tamina wins, and remember, both of these women are in the Royal Rumble, but if Tamina wins, she is going to be the most dangerous person in the Women's Royal Rumble, and here's why. The winner of that match earns the 30th spot in the Women's Royal Rumble. That is the last person to come out from the back to enter the Royal Rumble, and the 30th person is the freshest person. So Tamina could definitely win the Royal Rumble, and she's going to be the biggest threat. But then again, she maybe not, because then all the other women could probably group together, get Tamina out, and continue on with whatever it is that they were doing. The person that I'm actually going to predict to win this year's Women's Royal Rumble, this could actually get me a little bit of heat for this, but probably not. I really think that the person that is going to win this year's Royal Rumble is between two women, but I'm going to say it's Bianca Belair that wins this year's Women's Royal Rumble. She has recently been on a roll with some of the things that WWE has kind of planned with her throughout the past recent weeks, and they've really been elevating this rivalry between Bayley and Bianca Belair. I would not be surprised if this rivalry carried on into the Royal Rumble match, And would I see Belair getting Bayley eliminated? Possibly. Most likely, seeing as how Bayley is kind of like the chicken heel, if you know what I mean. I honestly really do see Bianca Belair winning the Royal Rumble, because look at last year. She eliminated 8 women, I believe, before she herself got eliminated by, I think it was Charlotte Flair last year. But I think this year is going to be a redemption year for her to win the Women's Royal Rumble. I think it's going to happen. And then last but not least, the Men's Royal Rumble. This one, I've had to give a little bit of thought. You might think I'm crazy for saying this. You might think I'm crazy for actually picking this person to win this year's Royal Rumble. But the person that I believe is going to win the 2021 Men's Royal Rumble is Edge. Now, that's going to sound a little bit biased. I know that probably sounds biased, actually. But hear me out. Edge recently returned to WWE TV programming this past Monday and declared himself into the Royal Rumble. And in his promo, he was talking about trying to get back when he never lost. Because if you recall, 10 years ago at WrestleMania 27, he won the World Heavyweight Championship, but a week later, because of doctor's orders requiring him to retire, he had to forfeit the belt. And now, I really do believe that WWE is actually going to push Edge to win the Royal Rumble. This is a very, very bold prediction. But I really do think Edge is going to be able to pull it off. Seeing as how they're hyping Edge, see as Edge has created this hype that he could win the Royal Rumble and that he could main event WrestleMania and take back the thing that he never lost, there's a possibility that he could actually win. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I'm really hoping my guy, Adam Edge Copeland, wins the Royal Rumble. But if he doesn't, he tried. At the very best, he said himself that he's got to try. And I really do wish him the best of luck in tomorrow night's Men's Royal Rumble match. So there you go. That's my predictions for the Men's Royal Rumble. And I want to know, what are your guys' predictions for the Royal Rumble pay-per-view tomorrow night? Let me know down in the comments below if you end up finding this video. And I want to thank you guys a lot for watching. If you guys liked the video, go ahead and give it a like. If you have not considered subscribing yet, I recommend you do so to keep up with some fine content coming out in the near future. And that about does it for me. I'll see you in the next one.